Hi, good afternoon. This is Stormcastle from Stormcastle's Comics Collectibles, and I'd like to chat about the Man of Steel miniseries by Byrne. Now, this miniseries was put out after Crisis on Infinite Earths, and in the post-crisis timeline, DC was going out to build their new cohesive universe, and Byrne took over to give a retake. This is the collector's edition copy. And in this new universe, he redraws what we have seen Krypton look like, make it a little more sterile, makes it a little more with birthing pods, which really sets down the foundation of what much comes later on. They tap back into this iconic imagery of Krypton as a sterile world. And then Lara sees a farmer, and she's like, "Oh my God, he's such a barbarian. He runs around unclothed in their world, and they touch the soil." And for them, it is a vast difference. Considering the last major set of images they drew on was the Superman movie. But this series ended up setting up how we perceive Superman from now on. For instance, there is no Superboy. You never see Superboy. Clark starts getting his power. He's starting to get his powers, becoming more powerful. And Paul Kent tells him, you got to be careful. And we know the powers are here. And so there's never a point in this continuity where there is a Superboy. And then he shows, Clark, Pocket shows Clark the alien spaceship, tells about it, and how it talks about growing powers, but we even see that there's the hint for the Green Kryptonite making him tired, and it sets up everything that we know later on. Originally, Clark eventually leaves. He goes out in the world and, has found himself. And Ma and Pa Kent both have this scrapbook where they're keeping together all these articles. And then we see the defining event where Superman appears. He saves the space plane, and he's like, they all wanted a piece of me, and he was afraid, and it was a little too much. And he does the right thing, but he gets overwhelmed, and he briefly meets Lois Lane. But this is everything that gets built in later on. They make this Ma and Pa Kent help make the uniform. It's not come from Krypton. It's not the symbol of hope. It's just shows him build out. But this series is what sets him on the path, and is pretty much used for the blueprint later on. What happens? This is just like a get together primer because Superman already exists in continuity, but it just shows more and more of how Lois is trying to figure out who he is, and shows Clark Kent gets the job by scooping. He starts doing Superman things, and he ends up getting the job as Lois has been chasing him. And he saves her. She's in a car accident, and he's like, oh, by the way, do you often carry, she gets her interview, and he's like, oh, do you often carry an aqualung underneath underneath the front seat of your car? And she's like, oh, he knew that was going on. And then, as she gets there with proudly to get his job at the Daily Planet, Clark Kent turned an article in on Superman, and Lois is like, we'll remember this on and on and on. There's another page here, right? It's, and then the third issue is where Batman meets Superman, and they fight this villain called Magpie. And Superman doesn't approve of everything Batman does because Batman works fear, and Superman again represents hope. And he disappears on him. And as Superman goes from fear, Batman's like, look, use your eyes and you'll see this aura. And he goes, I have a force field up that if you get a hold of it, it'll kill a person. And Superman's like, what? I'll kill an innocent person. Superman's like, what? You'd really do that? And he's amazed. And Batman says to touch Machiavellian and admit, but in the end, it justifies my means. And he basically explains to him that he's just trying to stop this murder. And this is where we see the character Magpie appear, who eventually appears in Legends crossover. And, we see the first appearance of an inconsequential villain. And over the course of the issue, we see Superman begins to trust Batman, and they solve the mystery together. They track her down, and they get some respect. And then at just the right part, Superman's like, not so fast, Batman. We settle the matter of the innocent life you place in jeopardy. Batman's like, here's this bomb inside I have a bomb inside my tool belt. And he's like, you risk your own life? Why? Batman says, because I knew my plan would only stop you if you believe, if I wasn't lying. And this is where they start to come to respect each other in the new continuity. Of course, there was the crossover Legends. And then we see Lex Luthor show up. He still had a full head of hair. He still has full head of hair. And Lex Luthor is used to being so... Lois is not letting him go about catching him. And he's got weights in the house. Lois is like, wow, these aren't very heavy weights. Even I can lift these up. He's like, oh, crap, I didn't realize, how much... I got to judge better weights because I'm not used to the build there. And we see that Lex Luthor basically allows these criminals to take over his yacht just to test Superman's powers. And the mayor they end up stopping the criminals. And the mayor proves that he's no longer listening to Lex Luthor, that it's a new day in Gotham, that he has Superman arrest Lex Luthor, and we have Luthor get taken in, gets a mugshot, and he will remember. And here's what Luthor says, I have a message for you, Superman. He says, the message is the most important message you'll ever hear. Quite possibly the last. You made a big mistake, Superman, a potentially horrible mistake. I run this town, Superman. Metropolis belongs to me. These people are mine. And he threatens him. And now he's like, you're a dead man, and one day I'll be the one to do it. And then he attempts to get a hold of Superman's DNA. We see the Luthor suit, the one that was used in the toy line that they used. He's like, oh, and every time Superman catches him, he's like, oh no, you'll find that you find that this person is a disgruntled employee and he stole that and this and that and well as Superman knows and Lex knows Superman knows, but Superman can't prove it. Makes a Bizarro, and it ends up dying. We see Lucy Lang, who's blind, and basically Superman comes along and saves an ambulance, and they're like, "Whoa, Superman! What's wrong?" And Lucy Lang, who's blind, decides she's gonna jump off the bridge, and Superman saves her, and she's like, "Why are you so dusty? What's going on?" And they find out that there's this thing going around that appeals to be, this creature that looks to be, like Superman, and Superman is like, oh no, I gotta get him out of here because if somebody sees him as this Superman thing disguised as Clark Kent, they'll figure it out. And he goes to the fight. As they fight through it over and over again, Superman realizes there's something wrong with him. And, every time he hits him, he starts crumbling apart. And, Bizarro here recognizes Lois because of past interactions, and he takes her off, and she sees Lois, and she's like been seeing, since Bizarro was there earlier, she can start seeing shadows, and Superman shows them, they fight, and eventually, in the process, they beat him down. Superman realizes they're not alive. It's meant to look alive, but it's not. So he doesn't have to worry about defeating a living creature. He hits him and he explodes, and it realized also at the same time that its skin was having the effect of healing Lucy Lane. And once he explodes, the dust gets everywhere, and she's healed. And Clark's like, well, he kind of figured this out. It was really, it's not the last time we see the Bizarro after that, but it was a nice take on it. And then we get, of course, to get the Man of Steel. He goes back home, in which sets up, them. More of the mystery. He decides he wants to go out there, and we see Jor-El show up, and he's speaking Kryptonian, which is the alphabet we see all the time. And this is where Clark finds out all about who he is and where he comes from. He learns his origin. He sees his planet. This is where he finds out what's going on. And we find out that Lana knew all along that he was Superman, and he told her and showed her off there, and she was upset that he left her. She has kind of felt betrayal because they're oldest friends. And so Superman's more thinking about his life, and he goes to get the rocket. He found out the rocket is gone. Jor-El comes back and he shares all the information, and the end of the series is left with, he's thinking about there, but the real question is, he builds is what happened to the rocket, and then a month later we had a new Superman series, the beginning of all the stuff out there. And we get this is where they set Legends up, and Legends eventually leads to the brand new Justice League, which I'll talk about next time, or I'll talk in another video. But this is where we find out where Metallo and everything comes from. Everything gets set up off this. It was a real good series, and honestly, I think that most Superman fans, most DC fans would agree that this was a great way of bringing and updating in modern time, but there's not just a quick summary of what happened. This is things that happen here are felt in various reboots and modifications later on down the line. The groundwork that John Byrne has laid has stayed into even the modern Superman stories. Anyways, it's a nice little series I wanted to share, talk about. If you don't have a copy of it, you probably can find it relatively cheap. There's a different cover, but this is the collector's variant because I like that. And my wife was kind enough. We were at an outdoor flea market one day, picked us up for a really good price for me. And so I have the entire complete thing to show you in very good, in relatively good condition. If you have a particularly favorite Superman storylines that you like, or what you think about it, if you want to tell me down in the comments, I'd appreciate it. Like, subscribe, share, But more importantly, keep reading comics that you enjoy and sharing with others. This is Stormcastle from Stormcastle's Comics Collectibles, and sorry for the longer video, but it was a 6-issue series, not a 4-issue series, so we're gonna, But anyways, have a good day.